Yo, yo, yo.
Hey Mac, can you hear me okay?
Yep. How about you?
I'm coming. You're coming across loud and clear, man. Sorry, it was I was trying to get my cup of coffee brewing, and it was delayed, so I didn't mean to hold everybody up for that.
Well, as long as you got a good excuse.
That's the only excuse I have. And Jory
Oh,
pinged me and said it was time, and I was like, I was 10 minutes behind everything here.
better than being on the toilet.
That's true. I would have made something else up for that one though.
Running to your desk with your pants in your hand.
Exactly. It's not somewhere I've never been before.
Yeah, that's too much imagery.
So cool. I got the layman's lumber guide, your scouting report this morning. Check that out. And I appreciate you were on the call yesterday, making some comments with Greg and Matt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, welcome to Lunch with Lumbermen. Matt Layman, Layman's Lumber Guide. Ashley Buckled. Materials Exchange now powered by Mickey. So we had a big merger announcement, or a big teams coming together announcement this morning, Matt.
Saw
Uh,
that. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so we have partnered, or should I say, with a large company, great company, group of folks, Mickey Group, which is also revolutionizing the digital markets and commodities. And with Mickey and Materials Exchange now combined, sky's the limit. What we can do and help change the industry and move it into more of a digital sphere, so to speak. So we made that announcement. It's out on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all the other venues. But you can come to materialsexchange.com. If you're an existing member, you should be able to log in. If you can't, we can change your password for you. New members come in, we'll generate leads for you, and we'll get you on the platform.
Ash, what do you think this merger thing's going to do? Like, if there's one major thing that's going to be a standout, what's going to improve?
So I know what it's going to improve right away. Our users told us for a year or longer, can you please, and some of the users you brought over, Matt, hey, can you improve this for me? Can you improve that for me? The first thing it's going to change is their tech group over there is amazing, and they're already delivering results to us. So if you as a user want to change the way you're looking at something or doing something, you can basically get it a lot quicker. But in the first month or two, as we integrate here, we're just asking that you use our old platform, but we should have our new gen up and developed and running pretty quickly. So it'll change that. It'll change the speed and efficiency of the way people can consume the data coming across, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Mike was telling me the biggest change. These guys are not lumber guys. These guys are techie guys.
Well, yeah, so their whole the main part of their IT group was in our office. I don't know if that's the proper way to say it. That's an old guy, me saying it. Their development group, their engineers were in our office this week, and we had a great opportunity to work together, go out together, and man, Matt, I got to tell you, as an older guy sitting with these people, I have hope for our future, man. Right?
Well, somebody told me the same thing. They were, I don't know. It was a guy that's my trainer guy telling me he went to he's also in music business. He was up at NC State for this Wolfpackalooza thing. There's like 60,000 people, and he's like 30 years old, and he considers himself to be older. And he said the very same thing. He said, just looking out at the crowd of college kids and how they're behaving, he said, I had hope for our future.
I'm sincere about that. We went out to dinner the other night and sat down, and I was interacting with this group of individuals one-on-one, and they're great people, man. I mean, one of them was telling me how he learned to code in during the pandemic. Just decided instead of going to law school, he was going to learn to code and the guy does amazing things. I mean,
that's a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about the housing market is missing something, and it's the Gen Zers who are coming along. It's this group of people that they don't want to live in a 3-bedroom, 2-ranch brick home with a print screen and porch and a carport. Yeah, they're more concerned about how can I drive my technology life from within the walls of where I dwell, and I think that's the new generation of housing is going to be more tech savvy.
Well, look at one of the lead, uh, the CTO, great guy. He was just telling me how a couple years ago he lived in New Mexico on a ski hill for 6 months and was still working because that's where he wanted to live at that time. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of envious.
Well, you know Tim Sims, don't you? That
Yeah, yeah.
right. You know where he lives, don't you?
He's in Mexico, right?
He's in Mexico. Just
Yeah,
down living. Took his family and packed up, went to Mexico. He can do his whole job sitting there in the tropics and looking at the breezy palm trees blowing in the background. And I need to get that image behind me again.
It's pretty cool. And look at, so they have the ability, when companies invest in you, they invest in your team, right? And it's good to have a team that is so progressive, forward thinking, and looks a lot different than a lot of us sometimes. Our industry, sometimes we get in front of ourselves too much, right? And look, you're a big person of always moving forward and shaking things up and changing it with whatever you can, right? And it's hard sometimes because the pushback you get from people, but has your membership decreased? It only increases. You know why? Because people love that. That's
what my son was saying this morning. He said you look at your click-through rate. He said 56. You get an open rate of 56%. He said, is your cancellation rate 40%? And no, the people just they just want to know that you're there sometimes to lean on. But you said that thing about kind of pushing back. We've been doing a scouting report here for about 2 months now, but it's amazing how much people resist just even looking at it. I mean, it's free information and we've got scouts that are in Florida and the West Coast, Oregon, Alabama, Northeast. These are guys that are experts in the market. I mean, I'm getting so much information now on a daily basis. I was just going to think about how we do this show. You and I never talk ahead about what we're going to talk about, because by the time we hang up the phone, you're going to get some more information that you want to say something about.
Right. It's exactly right.
We can fill up 30 minutes with just the previous 5 minutes of life that happened to us.
So, yesterday's a perfect example. We're talking about European mills not having anywhere to go, and literally that night I get all kinds of emails from people because Canfor takes a small amount of production off somewhere, a market up in Sweden, which basically reinforces, again, there's nowhere else to go with it. And it's,
well, here's a positive thing about that,
which is good, right?
There's two ways a market can move. It can either move from a supply disruption or an increase in demand. And we know what demand is like right now. We know from all of our housing data and the economy, we know that we're entering a period in Q4 that it's not going to be a jolt of increased demand. So we think there's going to be all this Eastern European or Euro wood that's going to come invading America. But when it starts to stack up on those guys, I mean, you can only put so much of it on the docks over here. There's only so much you can put it and so much you can put on your yard. Those guys aren't going to keep on making lumber forever and just keep dumping it in the U.S. Prices get to be around $250 or $300 a thousand. It's not going to work for them anymore, but it works fine at 500. But
yeah,
I wouldn't think that it's going to be coming forever, because there's a choke point.
And there's only so much vessel space and port space and all the other stuff you deal with. You're right. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But, so you sent a note over, builders see rapid excess inventory of unsold homes over the next 90 days. Isn't it amazing what you and I were talking about 6 months ago? And people called us doomsdayers in a way. But what we saw happening, even some of the economists that just follow the building industry kept saying how in their mind things looked good, but the lumber industry and a lot of the people in the know felt it starting to develop. And
right.
Now we're hearing some of those same economists are saying, well, housing is slowing. Well, I mean, where were you 6 months ago or 4 months ago when we saw lumber coming off and could feel that around the place? There's a lot of unknowns, no doubt about it. But right now, heck, I even saw a story yesterday about how during the pandemic, household formations were growing, and now they're not anymore.
Yeah, it's maybe, and you know what? I think the whole thing is kind of unique. Is like the housing market didn't stop because of unaffordability. The housing market stopped because Jerome Powell said, "Run for cover." I'm going to make it tough for you to be able to afford to buy a home. And I'm giving you fair warning. So head for the hills. So everybody said, okay, I'll quit buying. And they head for the hills. And still, since that time when people started backing off of housing, the price of housing has continued to go up. The cost has continued to go up despite lumber coming down. There's still labor issues and transportation issues and supply chain issues, and it's not going to go away. And it's my belief is that the Fed's whole intention is to raise interest rates to the point where we start to fear 8% interest rates and we drop back to 6 or 5, and all of a sudden that feels good, and we'll be off and running again. So I don't think 2%, 3% interest rates is back in the cards. It's just us getting used to these bigger numbers and you take a chunk out of the value of housing. Think about the value of housing. For the last 12 months, all we've heard about is people getting $50,000 for a $500,000 house, getting a $50,000 offer for more than it was asked for. So home values are inflated because of people just panic buying them. So I think there's an easy 10% that could come out of the price of housing just to make it be realistic again. And then you get another group of people, that same group of people that are disqualified now or uninterested are going to be interested again, and we're going to get right back in the groove again.
So I think a little bit of our theme yesterday we were talking about is people that have been in the lumber industry for a long time, maybe get used to the market that we saw 4 or 5 years ago instead of the one we saw the last 2 or 3 years, where you still have good outtake. There's still good takeaway. Repair and remodel remains good, but you don't have you currently don't have the same type of people building the same levels of inventory, speculative inventory. You don't have all the car loads and truckloads and inventory caught up at mills that are sold trying to get to destination. Now there's wood sitting there unsold trying to get to destination, right? Does that makes it, and it goes right into your point here. No plans for how to project Q1 2023, much less the whole year. Let's talk about how lumber will react over the next 90 days. And what do you think? How do you think lumber is going to react over the next 90 days, Matt?
I think it's incredibly obvious and simple. We're gonna have a rally that starts like right now. I think it's starting this week. We're gonna have there's an increase in buying, and this is an FDP pivot week on my forecasting work, and I'm thinking we're gonna have a 2 or 3 week little pop where people are filling in. But we also know that the builders are going to spend the fourth quarter this year finishing what they've got started. They're not going to start new homes. So there's going to be an abundance of new homes coming on the market that are unsold. There's going to be a little panic with prices selling off. And framing packages are going to get in less demand. So we're going to see prices start to fall. They're going to get a little rally in September. I think we're going to fall hard into October. Then we're going to see mills saying, if you're not going to buy it, I'm not going to make it. And then we're going to see curtailments probably from November, December. And then we're going to get running to the end of the year with everybody being under inventoried and mill production down. And actually we'll be in an undersupplied condition with the market really not even having strong demand. But I think, we're talking 4 months from now, and that's kind of a lifetime in the cycle of an economy. Like we still can't decide if we're having a recession or not, or what's going on. But
that's a good point. And you think about this, and you've seen it over the last 3 months. We've had 2 or 3 little rallies, right? Where everybody thinks it's the next new slice bread going to 1,000, and all it is inventory buying to cover for the next 30 days, and it falls back off again. I think we probably see that again, maybe a little bit more.
It's like a pendulum that swings back and forth. Right now, the pendulum's swinging. The mills have the inventory, which means that the dealers don't have the inventory, and they need to have some. They can't operate and carry on minimum business even in a recession with the low inventories. I was on a phone with a conversation this week, and the guy said he had 2 weeks of inventory, and on that same conversation was his biggest builder customer, and he was talking about how he's good to the end of the year. And I went, well, there's a little problem right there. You guys are confessing in public that you've got you need one of you needs to buy, one of you needs to be aware of what's going on and catch up. So I think that's what's going to happen right now in the future.
So Tim just joined. I told Tim says hello from Cozumel. He's on YouTube. Excited to hear more about Mickey. Congrats. And I told Tim that Matt and I were just talking about him. We were just talking about how excited we are about the young workforce, Tim. And we mentioned that you were down in Florida with your or in Mexico with your family. And you just were able to do that and work from there, which is really cool. Kevin Johnson said in most areas, Coach K, is that it says Kevin Johnson, in most areas in Canada, we have already seen a 10% drop in home prices. Michael Shepard. Hey, Michael, congratulations, Ashley, on joining force with Mickey. Looking forward to seeing what you guys bring to the table. Thanks, Michael. Looking forward to you continuing to do to help grow our platform. David Stalkup, I've seen a tremendous amount of activity in the marketplace this week, but lumber futures are continuing to drop. What are those people playing in futures seeing that the market doesn't? Well, Dave, it is true.
The active word there is playing.
Yeah. And look at that is a 2x4 contract that is going into expiration right now. I think it's getting closer to cash. Cash was in the high 400 bid yesterday, and futures is kind of coming down to it. Look at it. It's an interesting market. Many talk about it. Few actually participate in it. It's a good tool to use along with a bunch of other tools. I don't think they're seeing anything that you don't see. I just think I think that they sense weakness in the market like anybody else, and that's the current flavor of the month, and that's how they're playing it. What do you think, Matt?
I think that's exactly when you get close to expiration like this, the futures and cash come together, and futures is expressing what was happening 2 days ago. And like David's saying some more. He's talking about some Euro lumber. The 16s were like selling out all over the place, but all my guys are stepping in and buying. They started last week and this week, and they'll be kind of wrapping it up next week to cover through October. And I think that's we're going to get a little pop in the market, and futures is going to probably reflect that. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the day or tomorrow, you're going to see futures just jack up to 510 just to be where cash is, because probably from where we are right now, the market's going to expire when cash. I mean, the future is going to expire while cash is relatively strong or on a stronger footing over the next 2 weeks. So I would think you expect futures to go off a little higher in the September contract.
My answer is I have no idea, because I don't think there's any play in the Western spruce market yet, or the cash market. Matt, have you? It was still falling yesterday. The cash price.
I heard an 80 car block got sold by one mill to one user, and it's going to take about 2 or 3 weeks. It's on the ground, and the number was 500. It really was. That was.
Yeah, that could be right. And I guess the question is, did somebody tell you that? Are they long futures or short futures?
No, it's neither one. It was somebody.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense, right?
Somebody trying to trade futures, I think.
Hey, one interesting thing that I heard too is the car situation hasn't changed at all in the past. So if there was a big push to buy inventory right now, which I'm not saying there's going to be, the shipping methods are still not really flowing as fast as everybody likes.
The car situation isn't going to change, because we keep talking about this. It's the precision railroading process. And that is having fewer employees, fewer cars, fewer equipment, less equipment. Is basically the railroad industry has evolved into in order to be more profitable, they got to get poorer service.
Yeah, it's like Kyle put up there, simply put, more sellers and buyers today. That'll soon change. And the production report in the U.S. came out today too. The industrial production, was it? And you could kind of sense. We saw this in lumber months ago, right? Where all the sellers were in control for a year and a half, 2 years, and all of a sudden you could almost feel the week that changed. In the old lumber pits and trading pits, that was when everything got quiet and the momentum changed the other side. Well, it sounds like some of the other commodities in the U.S. are also starting to become more of a buyer's market than a seller's market. The whole trend is starting to change. And the cool thing is, like, lumber was one of the first ones to reflect it. It's the canary in the coal mine. At least it seems to be.
Yeah, we in the lumber business tend to overreact to news. If you look at the chart when the price went from 400 to 1700, and just it was for one thing, it was builders saying, whatever you do, don't run out of lumber. It didn't mean that they were going to have this big surge of business over the next 2 or 3 months. It just meant that they had longer order files. So we in the lumber market took that to mean whatever we can buy, you'll pay whatever price for it. And we ended up double buying and triple buying and getting too much inventory. And you saw the big spike in prices that went up and down like that. But the supply of homes and the construction of homes was steady. The supply of lumber, the manufactured lumber was steady. We just got in the middle of it and made something out of it that didn't exist and paid the price for it.
Yeah, no. Are you going to the BCMC? One thing I
Yep.
wanted to talk about here. So BCMC is in a week and a half in Columbus, Ohio.
Yep.
Everybody, hopefully you're there. We're gonna have Matt and I hopefully can do our show live from there. I think it's on Thursday.
Yep.
It's going to be open Thursday, and it should be a great one. So if you haven't signed up for the BCMC show in Columbus, Ohio, and the Framers Summit, Framers Market, it's a great show to go to. Matt was live with us last year there. Matt and I were at the booth together. And where are you going to be at this year, Matt?
I'm going to be in a booth with Todd Drummond and a few other guys that we're going to have. We've got a little consulting group together, but so it's going to be on an end cap somewhere. But I'll just walk around and I'll be standing out in the middle of the.
Right on. So what did you notice in the in your scouting guide today, as far as price wise go? Is there anything changed? We talked about Eastern and Western Southern Pine a couple of weeks ago. Is that dynamic started to change at all?
Yeah, look at the right hand column where it has the momentum change, and notice that they're all green.
I printed mine out in black and white.
Okay. On the right hand, on the
that's the Excel one. So we want to bring up the.
That's the one. That's the one that's the survey one.
Okay.
See if you can show the other one. But basically, the downside momentum is waning. It's the rapidity of the downside portion market is there on the left hand side. Well, let's see. Unfortunately, it doesn't show on this one. It doesn't show on the scouting report, but on the full report, it shows that the momentum is decreasing. Downward momentum is decreasing. It's gone from a pace of like 93% to about 97%. Even some prices look at all the zeros and the unchanged products, especially in Southern Pine and all the red in green Doug fir, dry hem fir, OSB. Those things are more in the $10 and $20 range rather than 50s and 100s. So the downside momentum is easing. So I think we're getting to a place where the buyers are kicking more tires, and mills are starting to feel it, and they're getting more offers without having to take as deep a discount or counter. Prices were anywhere from 5 to 50 under print, and I think they're getting more down to probably the end of the week. They'll be just 5 to 10 or 20, and I fully expect next week's going to be an up week or at least a flat week, but I wouldn't be surprised if next week's an up week for print.
Yeah, well, it's always interesting going through a long weekend for lumber, right? It can be a market killer or a market rally, right? Always is interesting. We go into a 3-4 day weekend. The home centers see everything, see what the outtake was. Matt was telling us yesterday, Beamer, that home center outtake is still decent. I don't know if you've heard this or not. Greg threw something out there the other day, and it was new to me, new information to me, just because I've been doing so many other things. He said people are starting to call people trying to either soft cancel or get out of contracts that they loaded up on months in the months past. Have you heard anything like that or not?
No, but you said something too that was important, and that was that more people had contracts than before. I think I heard people going from 30% to 70% on contract, and
yes,
that's fine until April and May. But having that much contract wood in the second half of the year is just unsustainable.
Well, in the first quarter of this year, the second quarter of this year, as you upped your contract, 70% maybe really covered 70% of your business. But as you move into obviously lesser business, I'm not telling anybody anything, as they say, rocket surgery here. As your builders quit buying from you, I mean, 70% of the first quarter could be 150% of Q3,
Yeah,
Q4.
right.
So
And it doesn't take long when you've got as much as you want to honor your contract, but if you don't have the space to put it or the money to pay for it, you don't have any choice but to tell the mill, you can send it, but I can't pay for it. I don't have anywhere to put it. So mill doesn't have any choice but to, get in flux. Because in the same way, when the market's screaming up, mills get behind on contracts and start canceling contracts. So they're kind of in flux a lot anyway.
yeah, it's kind of a crazy game how that works. But like you said, I think it's more of people recalibrating their contracts, right? Where
Yeah.
where if some of them do it every quarter, some of them do it every half. Some of them have flexibility to take less or more. So it makes sense to me that people are probably doing less because there's less
And
volume out there.
the lumber business is definitely influenced by a recency bias. We're going to remember last year, and that's why there's so many contracts this year. Is just the struggle it was to get lumber last year. It was easy to talk people into taking contracts, but there's no reason to have any more. You're going to have tough years when it's harder to get lumber, and easier years when it's going to get easier. But it's just kind of a numbers game. You got to play it all out and average it out.
So we were talking yesterday too about, and I like hear your feedback on it. As the home centers try to go farther down and take more of the traditional contractor yards business, which I think we know they are trying to do that. They're trying to take a lot of that walk-in trade business, the smaller trade business, the bigger trade business, all the way to the home builders. That's not going to. People are coming from a small yard that dealt with contractors my whole life. They paid for the service we gave them, right? I have to think that at some point people are going to wake up and say, hey, these big home centers are taking our business, and now we're going to just go out and really put another push in to show them what we can really do. Because I have a hard time believing that these big home centers will be able to facilitate that business at the same level of service that some of these other ones do.
Not even service, but they don't have the product on hand to do it. They don't. I mean, you go into a Lowe's or Home Depot, they couldn't put together 5 housing packages in a day. And it's just the commitment to, like Kyle and Sherwood, for example, they just got the volume of lumber that you have to be able to supply that kind of business is different than a home center business. They may get the DIY guy that wants to do a screen porch or a room addition that's going to need everything he needs. He's going to be able to put in the back of a pickup truck, but you don't see many flatbeds taken out of those places that are just loaded with home packages. You may get 1 or 2, but they're not prepared to take a day in and day out business and make the commitment.
But what happens when they build these big fulfillment centers where they actually are doing them to pull home packages and they are doing them to store all that stuff? Do you think do you think they'll take over market share over the next decade doing that?
Certainly they'll get some market share just because they're big enough to get it and they're big enough to be competitive on price. But still, when it comes right down to it, you're not going to be able to ever replace the service part of walking into the store and the owner of the construction company coming in and talking to the owner of the lumber yard and talking about the market, and rather than just sending an order in over email and say, here's my package, send it out to the job site. We get more and more of that as we get more digitalized. But still, the lumber market is still one of those handshake kind of businesses, and it's going kicking and screaming, not wanting to get rid of that. We still value the face-to-face and hand-to-hand contact.
Did your group meet this week, Matt, and talk?
Yeah, well, actually, we had a larger group. We had a group of about 20, and it was really pretty fascinating.
Could you give us just a little bit of the secretive feedback of that, or what you got?
I said I wouldn't do it, but I'll do it anyway. Not the basically it was this, the same thing was said last week, that it was just reinforcement of what we said last week. And I did a LinkedIn kind of exchange thing. We had over 9,000 views, almost 10,000 views, and the responses were in concert, almost all the same as the phone calls were. And that was that everybody's business is very good compared to what they expected it to be through August. But August is gone. And the builders say that they've got enough going on to carry them through September and October. and they're saying even through the end of the year. But the building supplies feel that there's going to be a significantly less volume of lumber. So what they're carrying less, their inventories are more lean. And to this point, so far for the last through July and August when their business was better, they haven't had an urgency in running out of lumber. They're running, some people running inventories down to 2 weeks and still being able to get everything they need on time. And we're probably going to see a little bit of that change in September, the first part of September. But the belief is the market's going to be overproduced well into the early fall, and then we're going to start looking at some production curtailments.
George Haas said, I knew he would talk about it.
George, you weren't even there. Don't give me any trouble.
Also, David Stalkop said, now that summer is pretty much over and kids are back in school, do you feel that the DIY markets at the big boxes will be back and busy again this fall after everyone took the summer off and traveled instead of doing DIY project, or has inflation killed that market? Well, I kind of felt that way a little bit, Dave, but and I don't have the same metrics as other people do, but some of the people I've been talking to said that, Matt yesterday said that from everything they see, he wouldn't give me the statistics, that still a pretty strong market right now. All the way from boxes pulling treated in, which pulls it through the treaters, to their historical sticks and panels are taken. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah, and here's I have two thoughts on that. One is the Fed's trying to discourage spending of any sort, but we know that the American dream and the American way is, if you want it, go get it. And I think we're going to come into a time when in September and October, I think the home center business is going to get better. They're talking about treated inventories not being very heavy or not moving, but I think that treated inventory is going to get sliced up pretty good, and we're going to see some more. If you look at the most active Southern Pine items that are out there, it's 4x4s and decking and 2x4s, and those are things used to make decks out of. And so the decking business is still. The outdoor business is still very good. That doesn't mean everything's going to be rocking and rolling, but I think it's just in general, the DIY and the home improvement business is still pretty strong, and I think we're going to be surprised that the curtailments I think things are out of sync. That the buying that's going on right now is based on last month's business, so inventories are kind of low because of supply, where the market was oversupplied based on the amount of actual outtake there was. And the thing that just to remember is the market only goes up when people are building inventory. No matter what's going on, we have to be buying more than what the mills are making, and that shift's going to happen with mill curtailments, not on the demand side. So I think we got just a short-term little push of strength here for the first couple of weeks of September. Then the market's going to get weak again until we actually see curtailments and the supply side and demand side get out of balance again.
Peter Follett was saying, I hope I said that correct, Peter. What percentage of Southern Yellow Pine production is now going to Mexico? I hear that market is very strong right now. I have no idea, Peter. If somebody on here has an idea on that, that's great. Otherwise, we'll try to bring that stat up or find it for the next time here. But at the speed of the internet, I'm sure somebody can search that pretty quickly. Kyle,
I haven't heard anybody talking about it. If it's happening, it's kind of like it's not a market breaker or maker if it's happening, but it's a good thing to keep an eye on if it's on his radar. If it's on his radar, it might be on other people's too. So
Kyle was saying in my estimate, in your estimate, Matt, Ashley, what would you suggest we should expect seasonally? In your estimate, would you suggest that we should expect seasonally adjusted housing starts to test 1.0 to 1.1 in the next 6 months? Absolutely. Months ago, I would have said, I'm not sure, but like Riley was said we would build less houses this year than last year, and he's been more in front of it. Matt was feeling the same way. I mean, if you ask me now, I'd say, yeah, I think so. We actually went down and tested what we were actually able to build over the last 6 months. And it seems to me from the momentum and what I feel is we're headed that direction. What do you think, Matt?
I think we're going to end the year with we're going to get caught up with the we had that 1.3 to 1.6 disparity between starts and completions at the beginning of the year. I think we're going to end the year around probably 1.3 million, 1.4 million and be in balance. I think we're going to definitely see starts on an annualized projection test 1 million, but ultimately I think we'll end the year at about 1.3 million next year. We're going to catch up with that capacity, because if we go to 1 million housing starts, prices are going to plummet a good little bit.
Right. Richard Kavnar, does that sound right? He was saying about the comment that I made on housing formation starting. Where did I find that? Because he said the household formations are at the same rate. I don't know where I saw that at, Richard. I'll see if I can find it and send it over to you.
I saw that too. That more people are moving back in with their parents over the last 6-8 months.
Yeah. That may have just been me pulling it out of my rear too and making that after I read something yesterday. But it seemed to me that the household formations were slowing from what I saw. But I've also seen 5 different estimates on what housing is going to do, from Goldman Sachs to everybody else, to somebody saying that there's going to be 0 fall in prices, to some people saying 10 to 20%. So when we get into this turbulence, there's data all over the place. I just know that
it's kind of hard for a builder or anybody else to make a projection when you can't define what a recession is, and you can't tell if you're in it or not, and you don't know what the fallout's going to be. It's no wonder the builders don't know what's going to happen in the first
yeah, but
year.
good point, Richard, and thanks. I mean, this is one of the things when you're doing a live show, you want to make sure that you don't try to fabricate too much stuff, because there's always people there to show you. And I like having smart viewers, because I should bring more of that data in. But so Matt, make sure how this is your week. You're almost a month and a half, 2 months into people pulling down and getting your layman's the scouting report. How has that sign up gone? What do you think? What can we tell people? How can we get more people on?
Well, we spent the last 2 weeks really refining it and getting it more, getting a scouting team, kind of building up that scouting team. We've got it up to about 4 or 5 people now. So we've got some really good input coming, and been focused on getting more input. So it's we're going to start focusing more on marketing and just spread the word. And it's kind of, there's really not a whole lot to it. You sign up for it, and it's free. And if you don't like it, you just don't get it. Don't look at it. But it's just to look and see. You're going to find there's a pretty radical difference in the prices of what you see in print and what you see from our numbers, because we tend to, my Southern Pine numbers, for example, have been a lot lower than what print's been for a couple of weeks. If people say they can't find the lumber, I said, well, just go ahead and make the offer and see what you can find. But my kind of strategy is this: when the market's going down, I print the low end of the number range that I'm hearing. When the market's going up, I print the high end, because I want the reader to be able to, when they pick up the phone, to be able to have a feeling about momentum and which way they should be addressing the market. If you need to be approaching it with it's a countable market, then you get aggressive. If it's not a countable market, then you just need to pull the trigger and move on it before it gets away from you.
Well, look, we're up against our time. I appreciate it, Matt. Hey, Kyle, thanks for showing. I was telling Kyle, I gave him a call after that news story came out today, so I had a good chat with him this morning. And we're looking forward to this teaming up with Mickey to build the platform that's going to take this market digital and other commodity markets in the future. But from being a longtime person in this industry, from growing up, I don't think there's any reason to be walking through your yard writing on 3x5 note cards and then dialing for dollars all day long. When you can do that and have the great ability to go and use Matt's scouting report and Matt's expertise and a digital market, and use all 3 of them, and we'll change this market for the better. So ultimately, we can all save time and spend more time with our families.
I'll make a suggestion for something that doesn't benefit either one of us. And is get an iPad, so when you walk around the lumber yard, you can buy it right on the spot while you're standing there next to your empty 2x4 bins. You can get on these things and buy.
No doubt, Matt. No doubt. Well, look, everybody have a great, safe holiday. And you doing anything good, Matt, or not?
I hope not.
Yeah, same here. That's how I feel about it. So thank you very much, Matt. Everybody have a good rest of the week. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you all for coming. Y'all have a good day.